Hello Army, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into something that fashion fans and BTS fans alike have been curious about for a while now, the fascinating story behind why Dior, one of the most prestigious luxury fashion houses in the entire world, chose to sign Jimin specifically as their global ambassador, rather than extending that same kind of partnership to the entire group. If you've been following BTS's various brand partnerships over the years, you already know this is actually a genuinely interesting departure from how some of their other major luxury collaborations have worked, and understanding the full story behind this decision reveals a lot about how the fashion industry actually thinks about individual artist partnerships versus full group endorsements. So let's start by setting the full context here, because understanding how BTS's other major fashion partnerships have worked really helps illustrate why the Dior situation stands out as something genuinely different. Back in April 2021, BTS as a complete 7-member group signed on as house ambassadors for Louis Vuitton, another massive French luxury fashion house. That partnership represented exactly the kind of full group endorsement deal you'd typically expect from a major luxury brand looking to associate itself with one of the biggest musical acts on the planet, positioning all 7 members collectively as the face of the brand across various campaigns and public appearances. But Dior's relationship with BTS, and with Jimin specifically, actually tells a completely different story, one that developed along a much more individually focused path over a period of several years before culminating in his solo ambassador announcement. Let's trace through exactly how this relationship developed, because the timeline here genuinely matters for understanding why Dior ultimately made the choice they did. The very first connection between BTS and Dior actually dates all the way back to 2019, several years before Jimin's eventual ambassador announcement. That year, Dior's menswear designer at the time, Kim Jones, personally designed stage outfits for BTS's massive Love Yourself, Speak Yourself World Tour. This was already a fairly significant collaboration in its own right, with one of the fashion industry's most respected designers directly contributing to the visual identity of one of BTS's biggest tours up to that point. It established this initial creative relationship between Dior's design team and the group as a whole, setting the stage for what would eventually become a much deeper, more individually focused partnership specifically with Jimin. That same year, in 2019, something else happened that turned out to be genuinely significant in retrospect, even though it might not have seemed like the beginning of a major brand partnership at the time. Dior specifically submitted Jimin's name for inclusion in the Business of Fashion 500, commonly known as BOF 500. If you're not familiar with this particular recognition, the BOF 500 represents an incredibly exclusive, carefully curated list of the individuals considered to be the most influential people shaping the entire global fashion industry, spanning designers, executives, media figures, and select public personalities whose influence extends into how fashion trends and business decisions unfold around the world. Being included in this list at all is already an enormous honor, reserved for people the fashion industry considers genuinely important to its ongoing evolution. What makes Jimin's inclusion specifically noteworthy is that this made him the very first third-generation K-pop idol to ever receive this particular recognition, joining an incredibly small, exclusive group of individuals from the broader entertainment and music industry who've been recognized in this same way. And crucially, it was Dior specifically who submitted his name for this recognition, not some other brand, not a general industry nomination process independent of any single company. Dior, as an organization, made the deliberate choice to put Jimin's name forward for one of the most exclusive recognitions in the entire fashion industry, years before they ever announced him as their official ambassador. Let's think about why that specific detail matters so much within the broader story we're telling today. This wasn't a situation where Dior signed a big celebrity endorsement deal and then, as a secondary benefit, that person happened to gain some additional industry recognition as a result of the partnership. This was Dior specifically identifying Jimin, as an individual, as someone whose personal fashion sensibility and cultural influence they believe genuinely deserved recognition within this exclusive fashion industry community, well before any formal ambassador relationship had even been established between them. Let's fast forward to January 2023, when Dior officially announced Jimin as their global ambassador. This announcement made him Dior's first Asian male global ambassador, another genuinely significant milestone within the broader context of how major European luxury houses have historically approached representation and brand ambassadorship. Following that official announcement, Jimin quickly began his ambassador duties, attending the Dior Men's Fall-Winter 2023-2024 fashion show at Paris Fashion Week as his first official appearance in that new capacity, and starring in Dior's first official campaign built around his image, featuring moody, sophisticated visuals photographed by acclaimed photographer Alasdair McClellan, showcasing him across a variety of tailored suits and premium outerwear pieces that highlighted both his fashion sensibility and Dior's own design language. Now let's get into the actual question at the heart of today's video: why did Dior specifically choose to build this relationship with Jimin individually, rather than extending a similar full group partnership to BTS as a whole, the way Louis Vuitton had done just a couple years earlier? Let's think through several different angles that likely contributed to this decision, because understanding the broader logic behind individual versus group luxury brand partnerships helps explain why this specific choice made sense from Dior's perspective. First, let's talk about the established history between Dior and Jimin specifically, which we've already traced back to that initial 2019 stage costume collaboration and his Beau F500 recognition. By the time Dior was considering formalizing an ambassador relationship, they already had years of established, positive history specifically connected to Jimin as an individual, rather than with BTS as a complete group. That kind of pre-existing, individually focused relationship naturally creates a stronger foundation for building a formal ambassador partnership around that specific person, rather than extending a comparable deal to the entire group when the prior relationship history had been more individually centered from the very beginning. Second, let's think about how luxury fashion houses generally approach the concept of individual style and personal fashion identity when selecting ambassadors. Unlike some other categories of brand endorsement, where a group's collective image and shared brand identity might be the primary asset a company wants to associate themselves with, luxury fashion houses often place enormous value on an individual's personal, distinctive sense of style, their specific aesthetic sensibility, and how authentically that individual person embodies the brand's own design philosophy and cultural positioning. Jimin has developed a genuinely distinctive personal fashion identity over the years, one that's been repeatedly praised by fashion industry publications and critics for its ability to blend different style influences into something that feels authentically his own. That kind of individually distinctive fashion sensibility is exactly the kind of quality luxury brands like Dior often look for when selecting an ambassador specifically meant to embody their brand's aesthetic vision to the public. Third, let's consider the broader industry context of how fashion brand ambassador relationships typically function compared to other types of celebrity endorsement deals. In many other industries, group-based endorsement deals make complete sense, especially when the goal is simply broad visibility and name recognition tied to a hugely popular collective brand like BTS. But high-fashion ambassador relationships often work somewhat differently, frequently centering around a single face specifically chosen to represent and embody the brand's identity across advertising campaigns, runway show appearances, and broader public-facing brand representation. This individual-centered approach allows the fashion house to build a more cohesive, singular visual narrative around their brand identity, rather than needing to coordinate that same messaging across 7 different individual personalities and styles simultaneously. Fourth, let's think about the practical realities of scheduling and availability that come into play with any major celebrity endorsement deal, especially one involving a group as massive and individually active as BTS. Each member of BTS has increasingly pursued individual projects and solo activities over the years, alongside their collective group work, meaning that coordinating a single, unified ambassador relationship across all 7 members simultaneously presents genuinely complex logistical challenges compared to building a relationship with a single individual member whose schedule and activities the brand can work with more directly and consistently. Let's also spend some time thinking about what this individual ambassador relationship specifically allows Dior to accomplish that a full group partnership might not have achieved as effectively. By focusing specifically on Jimin, Dior has been able to build out a cohesive, ongoing campaign presence built around his specific image and personal style evolution over time, creating this kind of sustained visual narrative that follows his individual fashion journey, from runway show appearances, to magazine campaign photoshoots, to public appearances at major industry events like Paris Fashion Week. That kind of sustained, individually focused brand storytelling is genuinely difficult to replicate when trying to coordinate a comparable narrative across an entire 7-person group simultaneously. Let's also touch on the broader significance of Jimin's individual fashion industry recognition beyond just this specific Dior relationship, because it helps illustrate why he specifically emerged as such a natural fit for this kind of individual luxury ambassador role. Beyond his Beau 500 recognition and his eventual Dior ambassador role, Jimin has also served as global house ambassador for Tiffany & Company, another major luxury brand, further demonstrating this pattern of luxury fashion and jewelry houses specifically seeking him out as an individual ambassador, rather than extending similar deals to BTS as a complete group. This consistent pattern across multiple different luxury brands suggests something genuinely significant about how the broader fashion industry specifically perceives his individual style influence and marketability, distinct from his role and popularity as part of BTS more broadly. There's also been reporting suggesting that Jimin's individual influence played a meaningful role in BTS's earlier Louis Vuitton partnership as well, with some industry publications specifically crediting him as having generated particularly significant media attention and promotional impact for that brand during the group's time as house ambassadors, even earning him the nickname LV frontman within certain fashion industry coverage. That kind of individually recognized impact, even within a group endorsement context, further reinforces this broader pattern of the fashion industry specifically identifying Jimin's personal fashion influence as something distinctly valuable, separate from BTS's collective brand power as a group. Let's think about what this pattern of individual luxury fashion recognition might suggest about the broader relationship between K-pop artists and the high fashion industry more generally. Historically, luxury fashion houses have sometimes been somewhat cautious about how deeply they engage with K-pop artists specifically, occasionally treating these partnerships as more surface-level marketing opportunities rather than genuine, sustained creative relationships. The fact that Jimin specifically has been able to build this kind of individually recognized, multi-year relationship with a house as prestigious as Dior, culminating in a formal global ambassador role, represents a genuinely significant milestone in terms of how thoroughly the luxury fashion industry has come to recognize and value his specific individual contribution to fashion culture, beyond simply his fame as part of a hugely popular musical group. Let's also spend some time thinking about the timing of Dior's official ambassador announcement specifically, arriving in January 2023, and what that timing might suggest about the broader strategic thinking behind this decision. This announcement came during a period when BTS as a group was already beginning to transition into that period of individual member activities and eventual mandatory military service that we've discussed extensively in previous videos on this channel. Signing Jimin specifically as an individual ambassador during this particular window makes strategic sense from Dior's perspective, allowing them to build and maintain this ongoing relationship with him specifically throughout a period when his individual public presence and activities were likely to become increasingly prominent, independent of BTS's collective group schedule and activities. Let's also touch on the broader context of representation within the luxury fashion industry that makes Jimin's specific ambassador role so significant. As we mentioned earlier, this announcement made him Dior's first Asian male global ambassador, a genuinely meaningful milestone within an industry that has historically had a complicated, sometimes slow-moving relationship with diverse representation across its major ambassador and campaign faces. Having a K-pop artist specifically recognized in this capacity represents part of a broader, ongoing shift within the luxury fashion industry toward recognizing and celebrating Asian artists and cultural figures as genuine, individually significant contributors to global fashion culture, rather than treating Asian markets purely as consumer bases to be marketed toward without corresponding representation at the ambassador and campaign level. Let's think about how this individual ambassador relationship compares to some other examples of K-pop artists serving as luxury brand ambassadors more broadly, because it helps contextualize just how significant and relatively rare this kind of sustained, individually focused luxury partnership actually is within the broader industry. While numerous K-pop artists across various groups have served as ambassadors for luxury fashion brands over the years, the specific combination of factors we see with Jimin and Dior, and multi-year relationship history predating the formal ambassador announcement, individual Beau 500 recognition specifically initiated by the brand itself, and a sustained campaign presence built around his specific personal style evolution, represents a genuinely distinctive pattern compared to some other, more straightforward celebrity endorsement arrangements we've seen elsewhere within the industry. Let's also spend some time discussing what this kind of individual luxury ambassador role has specifically allowed Jimin to accomplish throughout his career, beyond just the direct benefits to Dior as a brand. Being recognized this consistently and specifically by the luxury fashion industry has helped establish him as a genuinely significant figure within global fashion culture more broadly, independent of his musical career and his role within BTS specifically. This kind of individual industry recognition tends to open doors to additional creative opportunities and collaborations within the fashion world that might not have been as readily available if his fashion industry presence had remained primarily tied to BTS's collective group activities and endorsements. Let's also think about the broader commercial implications of this kind of individual luxury ambassador relationship, both for Jimin specifically and for Dior as a brand. Individual ambassador relationships often allow for a more concentrated, singular brand messaging strategy, where every campaign, every public appearance, every piece of promotional content specifically reinforces a cohesive narrative connecting that one individual's personal image and style sensibility with the broader brand identity Dior is trying to project to consumers worldwide. This kind of focused brand storytelling can be genuinely powerful from a marketing perspective, creating a clear, consistent association between Jimin's personal fashion evolution and Dior's own creative direction over time, in a way that might become more diffuse or diluted if that same messaging needed to be spread across 7 different individual personalities within a full group ambassador arrangement. Let's also touch on how this individual ambassador relationship has continued to develop and evolve since that initial January 2023 announcement, because sustained brand relationships like this typically involve ongoing collaboration and evolution over time, rather than remaining static from the initial announcement moment. Throughout his time as Dior's ambassador, Jimin has continued to appear at major fashion industry events, contribute to ongoing campaign work for the brand, and generally maintain this visible, consistent presence specifically connected to Dior's broader public-facing brand identity, exactly the kind of sustained individual relationship that luxury fashion houses typically hope to build with their chosen ambassadors over an extended period of time. Let's take a moment to think about the broader significance of this entire story within the context of everything else we've discussed on this channel regarding Jimin's individual career trajectory and cultural significance more broadly. We've talked extensively about his historic World Cup final halftime show appearance, about Samsung specifically featuring him in their newest AI technology demonstration, about his custom jersey generating headline-grabbing bidding activity at a major charity auction, and now, about this individually focused luxury fashion ambassador relationship with one of the most prestigious houses in the entire industry. When you connect all of these different threads together, you start to see this incredibly consistent pattern of Jimin specifically being individually recognized and sought out across an incredibly wide range of different industries and contexts, well beyond just his role and popularity as part of BTS more broadly. Let's also spend some time thinking about what this pattern might suggest about how different industries specifically evaluate and select individual representatives from within larger, hugely popular groups like BTS. Whether we're talking about Samsung specifically choosing his footage for a technology demonstration, Christie's auction house watching his jersey generate exceptional bidding interest, or Dior specifically building this individually focused ambassador relationship, there's a consistent thread of different industries and organizations specifically identifying something distinctly valuable and marketable about Jimin as an individual, separate from BTS's undeniable collective popularity and commercial success as a complete group. Let's wrap up by recapping everything we've discussed today regarding this fascinating story of Dior's individually focused ambassador relationship with Jimin. This partnership actually traces back to 2019, when Dior menswear designer Kim Jones first designed stage outfits for BTS's Love Yourself, Speak Yourself World Tour, and when Dior specifically submitted Jimin's name for inclusion in the exclusive Business of Fashion 500 list, making him the first third-generation K-pop idol ever recognized in this particular capacity. That multi-year relationship eventually culminated in January 2023, when Dior officially announced Jimin as their global ambassador, making him their first Asian male global ambassador, a genuinely significant milestone within the broader context of representation in the luxury fashion industry. Unlike BTS's earlier full-group ambassador partnership with Louis Vuitton, Dior specifically chose to build this relationship around Jimin as an individual, likely reflecting both their years-long, individually focused prior relationship history, and the broader pattern we see across the luxury fashion industry of specifically valuing and cultivating an individual's distinctive personal style and fashion sensibility when building ambassador relationships. This entire story really does illustrate something genuinely significant about how thoroughly the fashion industry has come to recognize Jimin's individual influence and marketability, separate from his role within BTS more broadly. From that initial 2019 stage costume collaboration and BOF 500 recognition, through his eventual global ambassador announcement, through his continued campaign work and public appearances representing the brand, this has been a relationship built specifically and deliberately around him as an individual artist and fashion figure, rather than simply extending an existing group endorsement arrangement to include him as one of 7 equally represented members. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the story behind Jimin's individual Dior ambassador relationship, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update like this one in the future. Drop a comment down below letting me know what you think about this whole story, and about Jimin's broader influence within the fashion industry more generally, particularly if you've been following his fashion journey since those early BOF 500 recognition days back in 2019. As always, thank you for being here, thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you in the next video.